this is the article, folks, that we were. So this is the newspaper that we have to cover, 2nd of August. If you see, if you see the first page, Mr. Khan is now there in Farjinagar in Karolva. Just in case you like his videos. Now, apart from that, let's talk about this. First news: how have serious concerns how Cheetah project. We are in dark. Foreign experts tell Supreme Court. Now, this has been another issue with respect to governance. In terms of poor governance examples, less of transparency of data, and these experts. They were kept completely in dark with respect to what is the health of these cats, and as well as they're saying that the lives of couple of them could have been saved. So this just the transfer of animals is not the end goal. You also have to see the adaptability of the animal as well. So this is where the lives of these animals got into this bureaucratic quagmire. So you can use this as a example, as a negative example in your answers. Uh, then again, violence spread, वगैरह, this is there. No trust motion, we already know. Yes, one important thing. So I want you to read on Project Tiger. If you've still not read it, please read Project Tiger. I want you to go through all the conventions that are there. Just board it up, or just use ChatGPT. All the conventions in the world with respect to tigers, and there are multiple ones, and India hosts the world's highest number of tigers. So this is what is required. The other thing is, whichever tiger reserves are there in the country, use your Prem Patel, whichever, and you just don't use it like that. You have to have that your own map copy, and in that map copy you need to have, and it should be a political map copy. Why political? Because you also need to see in which state is it lying. So you go through Prem Patel and then mark it on your own in your copies. Where is this particular tiger reserve coming there? And there are multiple tiger reserves. What this particular article says is that if you see the last 16, the bottom 16 tiger reserves that we have, especially in some states like Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, in these states, in some of the northeastern states, at times you have only one tiger per reserve. The number of tigers, no doubt, the census, and you need to read about the kinds of census that happens in tigers. So the census shows that the number of tigers that we have are increasing, but that is masking couple of things. That is masking that the tigers in some areas which are well managed, like UP or like MP, is increasing, but at the same point of time, it is not an equitable game. In some areas these tigers have the population have receded, and is almost zero. So this is an important article for you to understand. 20% of areas has less than 1% of tiger population. So we need to work on those areas as well. The other thing is, Patna High Court clears bill, this Bihar caste survey, and it's perfectly valid. Basically, Bihar had started with this caste survey to basically better reorient their welfare policies, to see how much how much representation is there. A number of things that can happen on the basis of caste, because India lives by caste, especially a state like Bihar, which is completely living in that age of caste, still living in that age of caste. There was this aspersion whether the Bihar government has had the legislative competence to basically conduct this kind of survey, and the High Court has given it there. We've already talked about Delhi Services Bill. You need to be very well aware of this. You need to be very well aware of Article 239AA and Subclause 7, which has been amended here. So these are 2-3 things that you should be aware of. We've discussed it a number of times, but the important thing that we are going to discuss here is the IT Minister to present 23231 bill, which is the Digital Personal Data Protection Bill. The other is the Digital India Bill, which is going to come very soon. Now, you need to have a very thorough discussion on this. You need to thoroughly know this article in and out, and you can't rely on BARD for this. I mean, or Chat GPT for this. What you can do is you can give it, you can copy the article and then ask it to prepare a summary or pointers for it. But at the same point of time, it will not be able to generate data for you because of the date at which the cutoff date at which. So now let's talk about this bill. Now this bill is being introduced. A couple of things that are mentioned here is that processing digital personal data in the manner that recognizes rights of individuals. This is one thing that is being dealt. But another thing is that because of the panel report, what is happening is data protection board will be there and it will adjudicate the implementation norms of the bill, and anything with respect to disputes could be handled by the Telecom Dispute Settlement Appellate Tribunal, TITVSAT. Your mains. If you see your main syllabus, I will. If you see your main syllabus, there is this UPSC syllabus in governance paper number 2, statutory, regulatory, and quasi judicial body. This is one of the regulatory and quasi judicial bodies that are there. So regulatory body will be the data protection board. So it's going to in last 4-5 years there have been questions on a lot of regulatory bodies. So you need to read about this data protection board as well as TDSAT. So all these, what is the work of these adjudicate, how do they work, so something like that, and you can see the 10 years again. And another thing is that the entire section on deemed consent has been removed in the final version, and it has added provisions of processing personal data for legitimate users. So earlier there was this clause of deemed consent, that if you're using any social media content, if you're using any social media website, there's an element of deemed consent. But now that has been removed, and for only that data can only be used for any legitimate users. Then then you can read this. The other article is press and registration of periodicals bills introduced in Rajya Sabha. Now it replaces the 1867 Act. Now what does this do? This bill aims, if you see the aim of the bill, the aim of the new bill is to have transparency and ease of doing business in the area of small and medium publishers. Now, till now, what used to happen is through the erstwhile act, district magistrate was given a lot of powers. You have to see, this act is of the British era, and there were a number of periodicals that and the government had to basically clamp and keep a very tight check on the use of periodicals, because they used to be the media at that time. That used to be the social media. So if a revolutionary to come out with book, had to come out with leaflets or a magazine, that would be the medium for the masses. But not for the masses, but at least for the educated class. So the aim was to basically muzzle that kind of content, and that is the historical background with which this act was made. But now the role of the DM magistrate is now completely diluted. If you see this paragraph, district magistrate could cancel the declaration of a periodical, while the press registrar general did not have suo moto powers. So role of district magistrates has been reduced, and it has now been given to the press registrar general. Did not have suo moto powers to cancel, and now it is PRG. Apart from that, if you see the next column, the new bill also provides appellate authority. The appellate board, press and registration appellate board, will comprise of chairpersons of PCI, 2 members of PCI, to hear appeal against the refusal of grant of registration, cancellation of registration. Folks, this comes under the statutory and this regulatory body, because now this body is going to regulate this. Apart from that, the punishable terms have been reduced to 6 months, and books which were a part of PRB have been taken out of the purview of PRB bill, as books are subject of administration or by the Ministry of Education. So, and also printing press will not have to file any declaration before DM. Only online intimation has to be filed before the PRG and the DM. So these are certain issues. You are freeing up the regulation of press. So this is an important article for you to understand. Now coming to government sets fresh target of 63 lakh loans for street vendors. PM Nidhi Swanidhi scheme, you should be aware about that. that we this was a target of 50,000 crore, 50 lakh. And how does this scheme work? This scheme works in three levels. You give a first term loan. If someone gives back the money, you give a second term operating loan. If that person gives back money, you give them a third term loan. So now the fresh target from 50 lakh loans to, or say I think from 50 lakh loans to 63 lakh loans. The government is including street vendors, and not just that, work taking care of their capital and working capital needs. And this is collateral free, so this also helps them increase their increase their viability. This was introduced I think during the time of COVID, but now it's now being continued every year. So this is an important article. Then let's come to the editorial page 12. See page number 12. Maybe draw the line. You can read on the hate vendetta that has been going on in the country, and the role of the politicians and the state. The Supreme Court can do whatever it can in its capacity, but at the same point of time, and the politicians which have the onus, and in this case the central government, which is both there in Haryana as well as center. And how do they basically curtail this bandwagon of violence? So, and you can again give multiple examples. You can give the example of the railway force, the railway. You can give the example of LBSNAA. You can give the example of these are different kinds of examples that you can give. Every place there is a different reason. In these places it is majorly based out of religion. In case of in case of Manipur, it's basically made out of community and not religion. So communalism is a major issue, and you have this topic in your mains as well. So maybe how to resolve it, what needs to be done, can be seen through. Then very important article, back from the brink. Now at the turn of the century, we had somewhere around 40,000 tigers, and they had dwindled to less than 2,000 tigers in the 20th at the turn of the 20th century. Now they fell to an all-time low in 2006 to 1411. Now we've increased them in the last census. We've increased them to 3,600. But what is the issue? This is where the important part is. That the census shows a dip in number of tigers in Telangana, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Odisha, northeastern part, and western Ghats. 18 reserves, most of them in these areas have less than 10 tigers left. Odisha, southern western Ghats, northeast have genetically distinct variety of tigers. So these tigers is not the same. It's not an omnibus that the tiger is a tiger. Every different region has a different DNA or has a genetically different tiger, and we can't lose these tigers. We lose that genetic diversity that is there. So the fall in animal population in these regions is worrying, but at the same point of time, the fragmentation of habitats in several parts of the country is leading to inbreeding among tiger varieties. Then apart from that, our country is home to 75% of the tigers in the world, and Madhya Pradesh has the highest number of tigers. Close to 350 tigers, however, live outside these protected areas, and because the number of tigers in MP are more, the possibility and the fragmentation of forest, the possibility of human and tiger conflict is increasing by the day, and this is what we have been seeing in MP. Then maybe if you want to read read Uncles versus Constitution, should you and something in ethics. This kind of light stuff you can always pick it up because this is what will make your answers to be very different. So something like this, should parents raise their children so consent for their marriages, even love marriages, is a very interesting question on ethics as well. So you can pose, you can at times you can pose your you can answer in terms of questions as well. So something which is different, something which serves as a hook to the examiner. Then you can cut this article and keep it. The next article, you can cut this article and keep. This is best article that I've read on foreign. The best. I was struggling with this particular topic because this is so important and it is so complex. With the number of amendments that have been done, the number of ways that this has been changed, and this article, everything in detail. So let's go through this particular article one by one. Now, first of all, it says that you should be aware of what is called as greenwashing and pinkwashing. So, greenwashing, I'll explain you. कि हम कहते हैं कि a company is basically complying with all the green green norms. But at the same point of time, we are a green campus. We say we are a green campus, but we see that we waste a lot of paper. We say a chai in cooler, but at the same point of time, packing it up in a polythene. This is called basically greenwashing. So you say that you're doing something, but you're not really doing it. But what this author says is that we are going beyond the greenwashing and we're doing green gutting, where we are using pro environment language but actually undermining regulation. So we are saying something but doing exactly the opposite. So we've named this in a fanciful way in Hindi, but at the same point of time, if you see the meat of this particular article, it completely dilutes the Forest Conservation Act. Now, the bill introduces a preamble that sounds wonderful, pro-conservation, but then it goes to nullify the Supreme Court Goda Varman order. Very, very important. You should be aware of this particular order, and this is which made all the land, whether it's notified or not, protected under the Supreme Court ruling. We will just get to know. It provides for exemptions that further weaken or already emaciated regulations around forest diversions. Now, the Forest Conservation Act originated in the belief that state governments were being too liberal in doling out forest land for non-forest. Now, what was happening before 1980 was that different states were giving all these forest tracts to private entities. So they were selling all this land, they were destroying the forest. So in constitutional term, what we did was, in the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, we brought forest into the concurrent list, and the central government was able to now make regulations on this. So enable the passing of the act and required state governments to get clearance. So basically now the state governments, if they want to divert any kind of forest under the Forest Conservation Act, they had to basically take the concurrence of the central government. So it added a layer of approval. So it made it difficult for the states. Did the passage of FCA lead to reduction in diversion? Yes and no. Why? Because in the initial years the diversion slowed, but post 1991, because our economy opened up, we wanted more kinds of projects. The development projects, highways, dams, mining increased. The only diversion for agriculture reduced, but diversion for all these other areas did not reduce. But what it had was, it added this extra layer of protection. Earlier, the states could do it in a jiffy, but now they could not do it. Earlier, they were doing it for agriculture and for development purpose. Now, agriculture stopped a little, but for developmental purpose, except for this extra regulation, it was not being stopped. But apart from that, the compensatory afforestation requirement was largely window dressing. Plantation often failed to come up, but served to expand estates of forest department. So basically, if someone is diverting forest, for example, I need 20 square kilometers to make a highway. So in that case, I would have to create these to compensate for this 20 square kilometers somewhere else. Now, what has happened in the 2022 rules is that you can compensate. I'll give you an example that has happened in India. In Great Nicobar Islands, what we have done is we have cut down the forest there, and then the private entity or the government is saying that we are going to compensate this in Haryana. So something you've killed the ecology in Andaman and Nicobar, which is the forest, and you're now creating different kind of forest in Haryana, which is not compensation per se. The other thing that the government is doing is that you don't even need to create a forest. You can create a zoo, you can create a plantation, and that would also do. So basically, you're cutting forest and then you're creating a zoo, and you're saying that okay, that's fine. So this is another issue that you need to be aware of. Then in 1996, what happened was the T.N. Goda-Varman, the Supreme Court had asked whether FCA was being consistently applied to all forests and all pockets of the country where land covered by natural forests is recorded as forest. So diversion was not being regulated by FCA. So there's a lot of patches of land around us which looks like forest, but it is not classified as forest. So the government could easily divert it. And this was one major laxity that was there. Now, by one estimate, 25% of country's forest cover is under such kind of forest, Now the court brought all this land under the ambit of FCA by ordering that the actual vegetation should. This eventually led to the creation of new legal category called as deemed forest. So deemed forests are ones which are not notified, but because of their vegetation type, and they would have to take the FCA. FCA provisions would apply to them, irrespective of the fact whether they are notified. Then this no doubt was a clumsy approach because the physical status is ephemeral. It could change very quickly, and administrative machinery best works with records, and there was no record of these forests. Moreover, it created misplaced fear among private forest owners. There are also private forest owners in the country. You go to Uttarakhand, you go to these areas. There are a lot of private forests there, and even plantation owners that they would lose control over their lands because the government can even for sustainable timber. Nevertheless, the 1996 order did ensure that all government lands covered by forest were regulated against casual diversion into any other area. Now, but then what happened was this Forest Rights Act. Again, to talk about paper number 2, vulnerable section, and one vulnerable section here is the tribals group, and the tribals have the right because their lives are dependent on forest and forest produce, and there is this products of forest and Forest Rights Act. I want you to do a detailed analysis over Forest Rights Act, the rights of the forest as well, and prepare a summary for this for your means. Then the Forest Rights Act in 2006 brought additional regulator. The local community now also had the right because it's the locals who go to the forest and manage it. And this was started because of health rights. And in the Niamgiri Court reaffirmed the local community's right to have a say over these projects. And then what happened is after 2014, these norms, these local governments and these local bodies norms and these things were changed because it was said this new discourse was said that all of these regulations causing delays in clearance, and it is basically cutting down on or reducing our developmental agenda and restricting our developmental agenda. Now in linear projects like railway lines, highways were exempted from obtaining obtaining community consent from the Environment Ministry. So we were basically bypassing this Niamgiri judgment as well as the Forest Rights Act 2006. But let's see what has happened, and is also ignoring the Andhra Pradesh High Court judgment as well. Now, in June 2022, new rules were notified under FCA. These rules were further relaxed the guidelines for compensatory afforestation, making into a business or rather a game where land can be shown to be compensated for any project anywhere, and in fact it can be shown to be there for done for zoos as well. Now, furthermore, the rules relegated local community consent to a footnote to be carried out independent rather than as a prerequisite for forest clearance. And because of all of these, the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes, the chairperson had resigned, and now we have this FCA Amendment 2022, which reduces the scope of land, scope again to land as recorded forest land. So basically, पहले जो 1996 की judgment थी वो कहती थी every land will be protected. Now only recorded forest land, and apart from that, we already know that 100 kilometers from the borders and in all these Naxal areas, you will give a carte blanche, this thing, a kind of leeway to the government that for national importance, for strategic importance, it does not explain what is strategic importance, what is national importance. They can do anything, and this is what is being talked about in the next paragraph. And fourth, most hilarious, forest purposes, it can compensatory plantations remain, greenwashing is there, and it can also be for safaris and zoos. So the reason that I've read through this entire article is that I expect this question, folks, either in prelims next year or definitely in mains this year or next year. This is too important an article to be the carpet. This has huge ramifications in terms of our environment. So this is an important article for you to read. You need to have go back to this article time and again. This quotation: "The heart has its which reasons not know." So something people who think by their heart would probably. Next article is South Asia's South Asia is open for business. Now, this particular article says that South Asia historically has not been working very well. Reclusive. We were thinking about that NAM and the trade between us was not much. In fact, the trade between India and Pakistan has a potential of around $40 billion, but we don't even trade for 5 billion. You can check that data out. But what this says is that there have been a number of trips that all these neighbors have made to India. India has made to all these neighbors, even Japan and France is now making to Sri Lanka, and people are engaging with these countries because of the fact that there are three things that are putting into place. First, in the in South Asia, we know that all this entire area needs to open up because of number of sanctions. For example, the economy of Sri Lanka is struggling, the economy is, and the only way out is to open up their economy. So with time, they are going to open up. The other area is with respect to Delhi's vigorous neighborhood policies. Now Delhi has started, India has started to engage with India. Earlier did not engage with or all these countries too much, but now India is individually engaging with it with all these countries, because SARC, for some reason, SARC is like a dead horse these days. The last meeting was in 2014. After that, because of the power rivalry between India and Pakistan, SARC has not moved ahead, but India has started moving ahead with their individual relations. For example, we know about India-Nepal relation, India-Bangladesh relation, India-Sri Lanka relation. All these relationships are very important. For example, for Nepal, the economic relationship that we have, the energy relationship, the people-to-people relationship. Similarly, for Bangladesh, the connectivity is one, power is another, people-to-people is another, transport is another, and we are selling that power from Bangladesh to Nepal as well. So all of these issues are extremely important. And then apart from that, now we have this India-centered regionalism where all countries are also engaging, all the entire world is also engaging with, because they want to curtail. We know the power play between US and China, and India and China, and they want to basically hedge their bets that there should not be a unipolar Asia, so to say, which is basically dominated by China. So all these reasons are there why all these countries are also engaging with China. So you can read this article. Then comes our explained page. So WHO report on tobacco control key findings and how India fares. India has fared really well on this. Now you can read about WHO had developed what is called as Empower, where Empower stands for something. You can also read there is a act in India called as COTPA. You can read this act, control or prevention of tobacco and other products, something like that. So you can read about this act. You can prepare a summary for this. The number of people who die every year because of, not just because of smoking, but also secondhand smoking. And what we have done, we have this regulation of 85%. So all the cigarette companies cannot advertise, and you have big advertisements on how dangerous cigarettes are. And now we are also regulating the OTT platforms for which are promoting cigarettes. So Empower is something that you need to know, and we are doing really well in terms of regulating cigarettes. And we've also regulated e-cigarettes. We've banned the use of it, although it is just black market. Very important article. Subcategorization of OBCs. Justice Rohini report, which basically talks about what is the subcategorization within the OBCs. If you see that they have a 27% jobs, but at the same point of time, that 97% of all jobs gone to last paragraph of 97% of all jobs and education seats have gone to of caste, and 25% of these jobs had gone to just 10% of OBC communities, and as well as 1,000 communities, total 37% have found zero representation in the government. So this is another thing with respect to policies that we have, and that is why states like Bihar are looking into these areas so that we can have sub-categorization, sub-reservation in OBCs as well. Something that I agree with, something I think can also be done with SCs and STs as well. Because what I've seen is, again, cornering of UPSC and all these. There's a lot of cornering of all these seats, but and at times My personal suggestion is also is that once you give it to a family, you should not give it to the subsequent family. Then, what is carbon capture and storage, and can it cut emissions? Very important article. What is CCS? What are the different kinds of carbon storage? You can carbon storage at source, or you can transport it and then capture it, transport, store it in oil wells, oil wells and depleted oil wells. So this is the article which talks about it. What is the technological proven? You can just read this article, but it's an important article. Then one last article in Lok Sabha bill on IIMs concerns and the concerns that it raises over autonomy. Now earlier the director of IIMs was being given by the board of governors, but now that power has now been taken. Now the visitor, who's the president of India, who will on the advice of the council of ministers will basically be involved there, and even the board of governors, the board of directors of the IIMs will also in that search committee as well. There will be a nomination of the visitor, which is the president of India. So basically, this dilutes the autonomy of all the IIMs. There were quite a few instances in the past where autonomy was reduced, but the IIMs had basically vociferously ruled against it. Now let's see that what will happen with this. That's it, folks. That's about today's newspaper. Was very important for Forest Conservation Act. Please make sure that you have adequate notes. Now we'll meet tomorrow. I'll let you know whether we can meet at 5:15 or 5 o'clock. But we'll meet tomorrow and we'll discuss today's. Thank you very much, folks. To call a couple of people, I will call. I'll try to call them up today.